Today's show is another XYZ Playground Edition where I meet with Joshua, exploring how leaders of today can learn from leaders of tomorrow. Today's topic is the XYZ Playground story, where we give you a little bit of a feeling of what we're after, what we have done so far, what we learned, and as well a handover to something exciting new. So stay tuned and listen to the podcast. Please welcome to the show, Joshua. Hello, Joshua. Good morning. How are you doing?
Jens, great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you too. What's going on? What's happening in the world?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting question to kick off this conversation with, because we're joking that you've actually been spending some time offline in this content machine that you've been doing, and you've been taking some time just to think through things. And immediately when you asked me is how we're going to start the conversation, I said, let's start with the discussion around Bitcoin. And for those of you who don't know, you may know that I've got a bit of a fascination with the blockchain and cryptocurrency space. And Bitcoin has ramped up over $60,000, which is quite remarkable and speaks to the investment asset that people are investing in, but also Coinbase listed on the NASDAQ last night, which will date this podcast a bit, but it's quite interesting just to see how that is changing the world that we live in today.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like I said, I haven't invested a single dime into any cryptocurrency, but I'm really intrigued in looking into that.
Yeah, well, we're gonna be building an NFT soon, and inside of the XYZ Playground. So stay tuned for that, because that's quite an interesting space that we're looking to create around digital forms of ownership going forward.
Yeah. It will be fascinating to look into that. But today is a day we're having the 10th conversation around the XYZ Playground topic. And for those who haven't been looking or listening to the other episodes, there's an XYZ Playground special in my podcast where it's not an innovation interview, though that everything we talk about is innovation as well. But it's really Joshua and myself looking into how do leaders of today learn from leaders of tomorrow, which is the reverse mentorship perspective, which is a business we are running on the side, a platform which we are building up. And of course, we want we basically did a prototype with all of you, with all the listeners, doing a couple of episodes in a different style, and then have decided that we take that to the next level. We will share more of that in the end of this episode, so stay tuned for that. But we want to do a little bit of recap. What is the XYZ Playground? What is the story, and how did it came along? So let's kick off. What is the vision of the XYZ Playground, Joshua?
Yeah, Jens, I think it's a great turning point, and it's sort of a transition phase that we're in at the moment, and it's both exciting and also encouraging to see the feedback that we've received from people that have been engaging with the XYZ Playground space. So to answer your question of what is the vision of the XYZ Playground, and to answer that, we have to wind back the clock to October 2020, where we started this initiative. And essentially the vision is to create a space where the leaders of today can learn from the leaders of tomorrow. And you might be saying, okay, well, what is this space? And I think that is one of the biggest excitements inside of building this business out, is that it's an engagement space. It's an opportunity for young minds to come together with established minds and to look at how we can create an environment where they can learn from one another through using concepts like reverse mentorship, but also fostering proper human connections inside of this digital space that we're now navigating.
Yeah, and it's really looking into. That's why we call it the XYZ Playground. If we just add that to that part, where we wanted to create a space where the different generations are meeting in a safe environment and really can talk and can engage with each other in a way that it's a safe environment where you can ask questions you wouldn't be asking in a different environment. If you, for example, if you're an executive in a huge company, you might not be asking specific questions to all your staff So this playground is an opportunity where you can meet in different ways and engage in different ways with young thinkers. If you're an executive, to ask difficult questions where you might not be sure of what young thinkers think about this topic, what the new generations, the future generations of leaders in your organization might be thinking about what you're after. And the other way around, from an engagement perspective, is the opportunity for a young thinker, someone who is maybe new in the business world, maybe still studying, to get exposure and getting interaction with other young thinkers, but as well with experienced thinkers and executives from different businesses to learn from each other, engage with each other. Very slow today. But even more important, what we're after is the bigger impact of that. So we believe that if we do this, if we engage with each other and create a dialogue and an engagement, we will build better businesses. The businesses have better impact in the world because we're engaging with each other in a different way. And I think that's a bit where we are after, is we want to change the world to be a better place. And through the engagement platform, the engagement space we're creating, which is called the XYZ Playground, that's one of the vehicles where we can do that. And of course, what we do there is unique in the way how we facilitate that engagement. That's why everyone who is listening to that, who is interested, join us and have a look at the xyzplayground.com website, join the community and help us to grow this thinking, help us to change the world going forward.
Yeah, and I think, Jens, just building off that, that's brilliant, the way that you framed that around the engagement space and the encouragement that we are providing to people to actually join the community and to take a step forward. And just to double click on two things that you mentioned, the first was the safe space, and how through the XYZ Playground, we're creating an environment where you can come and ask silly questions, or you can come and ask questions of young thinkers about what is the world that they wish to live in 10 years' time. And equally, we are also asking young thinkers to come into this space to meet with executives, where they ask executives tough and challenging questions. Because at the end of the day, what does the future look like? The future is largely going to be dependent on how we can build better together using many different generations, Generation X, Generation Y, and Generation Z, to create a more sustainable future going forward.
Yeah. And one thing even deeper, when I mentioned that we want to solve bigger problems in the world, what we agreed for us, and as well, we see that every young thinker who has been engaged with us over the last half year, everyone is interested into sustainability. So what we said is we will build this platform out to solve sustainability problems and engage on the topic of sustainability, to have a tangible problem. And even the sustainability space is huge. And what we looked is into the ESG goals, where we say, hey, we can facilitate something all around these topics and bring people who are interested in helping the world to be a better place with the ESG perspective going forward. And I think that's maybe interesting to understand as well, that we're not just solving all the problems in the world. We're focusing and niching down on the sustainability problems, because it's just a passion of Joshua and myself and the others involved. But also we have seen that from a feedback perspective, that a lot of young thinkers are definitely interested in that. And me coming from a corporate world, I know that a lot of established leaders have the need in getting into that space, getting more into sustainability, looking more into what sustainability is, that it is, like we discussed in the other episode, is that it is not just the environmental part, that it is more to that. And I think that's an important topic to mention.
Yeah, and Jens, I love the way that you framed that. And maybe just for those who are listening and are not conscious or don't know what ESG stands for, it stands for environmental, the E, S is social, and G is governance. And there's been a big drive right around the world to align businesses to be more aware of those three specific topics. And when Jens mentions those, we're encouraging you to think more broadly around sustainability. And if you listen to previous episodes, you'll have seen how we've talked about motivation, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. We've talked about storytelling, and we've also talked around the way that we think about sustainability and the problems that through using a sustainable mindset, we are able to solve and offer different opinions around how we can actually move forward and address some of the challenges that we're facing. And I think, Jens, to maybe take that one step further and saying some of the things that we've learned so far and how those align to some of the sustainability lessons and opportunities that we can look to address inside of that space is firstly around the ability of young thinkers wanting to get involved, but sometimes not knowing where to start. And I think that is a big thing that we're hoping to create and unlock inside of that environment, is around positioning an enablement space inside of the XYZ Playground, where young thinkers can come and learn, can contribute, can share ideas, and connect with more established leaders. And on another side of things, from a learning element that we've experienced, is the ability for people to sort of feel like they are contributing. And that links to the previous point that I mentioned around not knowing where to start, but also feel like they're contributing to something greater than themselves. And I think that, Jens, you've mentioned around this collective action that we hope to spark and inspire inside of this space, is because if we can bring more minds into the space and create some magic and throw a few particles around and see what sticks and what doesn't stick, and then maybe there's something that can unlock, and we can use unique thinking to drive that change going forward.
Yeah. And that's a bit how we have been thinking about that, how we believe it, at least if you're into innovation, that's for us the MVP, which we have developed over the last couple of months, where we said we do this podcast as well as part of that. Or if you take the Jens Heitland Show, we do a couple of episodes to just prototype our ways of thinking and the resonance of that, and gathering feedback of different listeners and interactions which we have had in the past to see how do we form that into something that's bringing value to society, bringing value to possible users of this platform. And that's basically, if you have been following these episodes, we did them intentionally to be a prototype, and that's really the innovative part of doing that, which you might not see if you just listen to one of the episodes. But we really looked into how do we bring this across, and how do we for ourselves understand how we can articulate and try to be on point and getting better in that. And that's why we have as well decided to do a separate podcast. Tell us more about that, Joshua.
Yeah, a great intro, Jens, and it sort of felt like you're building me up, and now I have to deliver on this podcast idea that we've put together. So here goes. The podcast that we're looking to spin up is, like Jens mentioned, is building off the work that we've done and the learnings that we've had from spinning up this prototype. And thanks to you, Jens, for allowing us to do that inside the Jens Heitland Show. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and looking forward to continuing the conversations with you going forward. But the new podcast that we're going to be launching soon is called the Reverse Mentor Lab. And now, why the Reverse Mentor Lab? So two things. We're going to stay true to the XYZ Playground's vision around creating a space where the leaders of today can learn from the leaders of tomorrow using a reverse mentor framework. And the reason we've added lab onto it is because we like sort of the way that different experiments can take place inside of a lab. And if you think scientifically now, we're always testing different things. We're testing different ingredients inside of this magic space that we're hoping to create, this enablement space that we're moving towards creating. And so the Reverse Mentor Lab will be a conversation that is centered around reverse mentorship and the thinking of young thinkers, but we'll also be bringing in established thinkers and leaders of today in their different fields to explore and question and challenge maybe some of their thinking and their lessons that they've learned, so that the young leaders of today can make better decisions in helping us build a more sustainable future.
Yeah, and it's really like we did and sparked already a couple of interactions with us in doing these episodes. It's like starting a conversation that's not just happening inside the podcast. It's a conversation which is how do we open up this perspective of, hey, there are different generations and they're not 100% connected in a business sense. So how do we do that? And then using that in focusing on sustainability topics, because we believe in that. And it's like that's as you said, it's like having conversations, interviewing different people, having group discussions on a podcast is a possibility for us to get the word out, is a possibility for people having a voice who might not have a voice yet. So it's really having a platform which is helping this engagement in different ways. And of course, there's the real platform, but it's as well the podcast, which is like infusing different discussions. We might even take things from the platform into the podcast and bringing guests in from the platform, or the other way around. So there are still a couple of prototypes to happen and to be figured out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I would encourage young thinkers to embrace, is that change is the only constant in the world. And I think that sometimes as young thinkers, we get scared of change because we don't like things to shift, change, and move quickly. But if we actually realize that change is good, and that change enables different opportunities to come together inside of that space, and how then we can look to connect and collect the dots, Jens, as you like to say, is an extremely powerful space that we look to hopefully unlock inside of the Reverse Mentor Lab through conversations, and also broader conversations that will hopefully extend way outside of the walls of the Zoom rooms and the podcast walls that we've become so accustomed to, especially over the last 12 months.
Yeah. Cool. That's it.
That's it. We will look.
If for everyone who is listening to this, check out in the show notes. We will put the Reverse Mentor Lab podcast into the show notes as well, that you have the possibility to jump over to the other podcast. We will do one more where we introduce the Reverse Mentor Lab inside the Jens Heitland Show, and then we find different formats going forward. But please sign up for the Reverse Mentor Lab if you like it. If you like the idea, contact us. Subscribe, of course, because every subscriber will help us to get ranked in different ways, and will help us to get the word out and solve the bigger problems of the world, specifically on the sustainability angle. Any departing words?
Yeah, and I just, Jens, I want to say thank you for getting this prototype going. And in sort of closing today, if anyone's listening to this and would like to get together to chat about the Reverse Mentor Lab or be a guest on the Reverse Mentor Lab, you can also reach Jens and I on LinkedIn, or just hop over to the XYZ Playground's website to connect, and we can definitely take that conversation forward.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, Joshua. Was a fun journey with you, and will be even more fun going forward.